Today we're going to be talking about gas to power, a very hot topic in Africa at the moment and in Mozambique, and especially for the region. Before I introduce my esteemed guests, I thought I would set the scene with a few slides that I think will capture the essence of what is happening in the region. So I'd like to start off with a quote from a report that was recently published. So according to this report, the Africa Coalition for Trade and Investment in Natural Gas, it's called ACTING, they say that Africa is expected to witness the biggest growth potential in gas consumption by 2040, with an annual growth rate of close to 3.2%. I think that is tremendous. It's a sign of the times of where we are moving. And it shows how the world is really pivoting towards gas. So the slide I've chosen to share here with you today is a global slide which shows the world consumption according to all energy sources. And the red one is natural gas. And this was the results as of last year, 2019. As you can see, significant move towards gas and reduction in coal. And I think that big shift, and you can see that trend on the right here, is what we are also experiencing in Africa. So the big question here then is which sources of energy are growing. And you can see the growth here of natural gas on the left with the natural gas curve in red. And we see on the right what's happening per region. And the red line is the Africa curve, showing the tremendous growth in gas in the region. One thing that's important here is how do we think all of this will tie in? Because to use gas for power, we're going to need infrastructure. And I think our guests in this panel today are going to speak about this and what they see. What I'm showing you here are what pipelines currently exist in the region. We have the Romco pipeline that takes gas from Inyambane to Joburg, Sasolburg. We have the Lily pipeline, which is a pipeline from Transnet that takes gas to the coast. And then we have the Sasol pipelines, which distribute some of the gas internally within Johannesburg. This is it. This is the extent of our pipeline. And there's going to be significant need for more. And our guests are probably going to be speaking a bit about this later on. This slide that you see here is also the trend in FSRUs. These are floating regasification units. And floating regasification units is a nice way, an economical way of moving gas, LNG, from the north, from any big producer to another demand area that doesn't have gas. And one of the big issues with gas in the region is that we don't have all this infrastructure to move the gas. So FSRU units, import terminals, will be fundamental in the future if our gas to power ambitions are to be met, and we are then able to move gas to the demand centers where they are required. So as you can see from the graph, there has been a significant number of importing countries, that's the blue line, countries who are building these FSRU units to import gas. And this is where I'm going to end with a brief introduction. I would like to just just complete this by saying last week we just received an announcement in the media that Ghana has just finished building the first sub-Saharan FSRU unit in Africa, has just been built in Ghana, and they are going to be importing gas to feed a big power station in Ghana. And the first import from Shell to Ghana is expected sometime by the end of March. So these are exciting times. They are setting a precedent, and it's probably the indication of many similar projects to come. So thank you. I think this introduction sets a brief scene to where we are going with gas to power in the region. I would like to now introduce our esteemed guests to this conference. So firstly, I would like to introduce Mr. Khaled Abubakar, Executive Chairman of TAQA Arabia in Egypt. Mr. Khaled Abubakar, are you able to give a brief introduction, please?
Thank you, Mario, and thank you for the very nice introduction and paving the way and facilitating my presentation. I'm Khaled Abubakar, the Executive Chairman of TAQA, and I'm joined as well here by my colleague, Mr. Adli Kafafi, Vice President for Africa. And I'm very happy to share our experience in Egypt with the gas utilization over the last 45 years, and how we are becoming a role model on utilizing the gas in the power generation and gas to power with a very high energy efficiency. Having said so, allow me to share with you some of the slides that So I hope that everybody, do you see my presentation, first slide?
Yes, we can.
All right. So just a quick historical brief about the development of the gas industry in Egypt. So typically, and I think this kind of development, you will see it repeated in several countries around the world. It's the same in Africa. But of course, the world is going much faster. So the pace of the development that we expect on dear countries like Mozambique and other countries in the region would be much faster. Had first gas discovery in 1967. First industrial and power utilization was 1976. Then, as you see, developing, we started to connect residential customer, first CNG for vehicle. Then in 1996, we moved to what we call private local distribution company, which was a game changer. That movement in 1996 allowed us to expand the gas network and utilization all over the country. And this is a very important milestone. So the year before 1996 was kind of testing the market. Testing, can we have a successful, reliable gas infrastructure or no? And from that point, everything went fast. More development of gas facilities. Once you have a proper infrastructure, everything built upon as a value added. You would have more discoveries of gas. You would have excess of gas. So we have the first gas export. Then we had shortage. So we have first LNG import through FSRU. And then again, with the Zohr discovery in the Mediterranean, we start to more focus on the gas. And we had our first mobile CNG to remote areas only in 2018. And typically, that's the typical structure where you discover the gas onshore or offshore, in addition to temporary some FSRU delivery. You push this on a reliable and sustainable gas grid. And this is the name of the game, is to have a local, strong transmission gas grid. If you have this, then you have multiple of choice. And what we've learned in Egypt, we did not build it from day one, the right size and the right pressure. We didn't believe that there would be more, at the time, we didn't believe that there would be more discovery. So we keep enhancing and growing that gas grid. But over the last 8 years, in Egypt, we have totally modernize and reform that gas grid to be allowed to deliver all our need and ambitions. Because when you have a reliable delivery energy, then you can have a reliable economy, job opportunities, and a decent quality of life. So the gas grid delivered to the local distribution, and on the local distribution company would start to deliver to customer typical power, fertilizer, industry, and CNG. How does that map looks in Egypt? And you can see here the gas transmission grid is looking like a big spaghetti plate that connect all the different offshore, onshore production to the local market. So, and I mean by sustainable that grid does not depend only on one pipeline. In most of the cases, there is a backup from different field. So if there's a shortage on a field, you don't have a shutdown on your power generation or distribution. So that's what we call the national grid that you can see here in green in my presentation. Then, as you mentioned, Mario, of course, the FSRUs are very important because that technology that have happened in the gas is very important. It allowed that you close the gap whenever you have a temporary shortage or a seasonal shortage. So if your demand in the summer exceeds your demand on the winter, then you can bring an extra FSRU to inject more gas on that grid and then remove it when you don't need it. So it's an additional plus. It's a backup to your existing local production and your existing grid. Because some people say, does my local production enough to really commit on power generation and other? And we tell people who ask such question, if the technology of the gas with the FSRU can support you at any time, any additional supply of gas. And here is the very nice results. Who are the consumers of the gas in Egypt? 60% of the gas consumed in Egypt goes to the power generation. And I'm very, very proud that in Egypt, 90% of the power is generated by natural gas. So 9% is generated by 90% is generated by natural gas, 8% is generated by renewable energy, and 2% are generated with fossil fuels. We did not reach this overnight. We had several different power generation that were depending on fuel oil and gas oil and natural gas. And the one that was depending on natural gas were a simple cycle. So over the last 5 years in Egypt, we have totally displaced the simple cycle with a modern combined cycle gas turbine. So right now, almost 70% of the production of Egypt is with a modern combined cycle gas turbine, which is very high efficiency on using of the gas, and another 20% with simple cycle gas generation. And this is fantastic for environmental aspects and for sustainability of having a constant power production. And I think that the COVID-19 crisis that we all faced in all our countries and home, as we came out with a very solid conclusion that gas industry is a reliable industry. When we needed the power in our hospital, in our intensive care units, in our factories, in our facilities, in our home, we were never short of power that was produced by gas, because this is a solid industry. And if I may stop here for 1 second, Mario, is that on the debate of renewable energy replacing the gas, this big slogan, I think it's very convenient for the European Union, but not necessarily convenient for our markets in Africa. We have different challenges in Africa. We have modern democracy. We are looking for better job opportunity, growing economy for our people, and better education for our kids. And you cannot reach this unless you have a solid, reliable gas infrastructure. And this is what gas has provided. Again, just I'm showing with you here a typical evolution of the gas production over the last 40 years in Egypt. And you can still see that the electricity is the major consumer of the gas, followed by 35 to 40% consumption that is typically the industry. When you have a strong gas infrastructure, you are serving reliable electricity and you are serving industry. And it's a sell tickets for the foreign direct investment to come and invest in your country, because they are sure of a proper infrastructure and no interruption of supply for the gas needed for the industry. And a typical story, the gas to end user. So the gas goes to the residential apartment house, and it replaces in that. On the left side, you can see the customer. On the right side, what does this replace? It typically replaces water heating and space heating, cooking, furnace. Of course, you know that the second cause of death in Africa is the pollution inside the houses due to using bad material for cooking. And natural gas typically replaces this. In the commercial, hospitals, schools, university offices, bakeries, restaurants, the gas is fantastic. It replaces fuel, oil, and other unclean energy. So even it does not pollute the food and even the air environment inside the hospital and the school, especially for the boilers inside the hospital. If you have your own power generation, so we are producing all this with clean energy, which is the natural gas. Of course, the main economical value added is as well on the industrial. So it serves all different sectors. The gas could be a primary source of energy in the fertilizer, which are needed for agriculture, and is very important and vital for industries such as steel, cement, textile, chemicals, and food industry. So in all these places, the natural gas will displace and replace diesel, LPG, fuel oil and diesel oil, and as well gasolines in our cars and vehicles that are moving in the streets between our houses, schools, and hospitals. Just to make it simple, this is a typical structure in Egypt where e-gas is the Egyptian, like NHE in Mozambique. It's the gas government entity that regulate and manage the gas business. They would deliver the gas through Gasco, which is a transmission company, to local distribution company. And that local distribution company has to invest in structure and operate and maintain the midstream and the low pressure distribution system to the end user. In 40 years, now we have reached 11.5 million houses that are connected with gas out of a total of 20 million customers. So 11.5 million customers are connected now to gas in Egypt. So more than 52% of the houses in Egypt and mainly all the cities are connected. And now we are tackling the small cities and the villages to be connected as well with a clean, reliable natural gas. The other thing that we have been strongly developed in Egypt and in several countries in Africa is the mobile CNG. Whenever you don't have a pipeline or yet the pipeline is not economical to go to a city or a factory, we use mobile CNG where you compress the gas to 240 bars and move it whatever is the distance, 400 kilometer, 500 kilometer. And that storage tank that you have in front of you would become the temporary storage tank at the facility, and it will be replaced on a cyclic day, depend on your consumption every couple of days. Another utilization of the gas is the gas district cooling, especially if you have an area where you have different office building or factories. So instead of every building have his own number of gas, of chiller or air conditioning, you do a gas district cooling for a whole area and dispatch cool air to the different building. And on a macroeconomical scale, this is much, much cheaper and much more environmental than the typical air-conditioned unit. The third application that we in TAQA, in my company, we are applying in some areas in Egypt, and we are applying this in UAE, in Dubai, Abu Dhabi, and in Doha, in Qatar, is what we call a synthetic natural gas. So as well, we mix the LPG, which is the butane, with air, so it will give you the same specification of the natural gas. Then you use it for the different application that I've just mentioned. Just having said so, we in TAQA, we're very, very proud, and we believe in Africa very, very strongly. Africa is the ongoing, growing economical star. Africa have a median age of 20 years for its workforce, and among the 10 growing economy in sub-Saharan, 6 of them are in Africa. So the growth, the business, the opportunity for foreign direct investment in Africa. And I'm very glad to share, we in TAQA here in Egypt, that we are working as well in Africa in several opportunities, but within Egypt, We have 15-year concession distribution. We distribute 6.2 billion cubic meter of gas. We supply our service and gas to 1.3 million customers. So the operation system, the call 24-hour emergencies, the billing systems goes to more than 1.3 million customers. And you can see here in this map of Egypt, several of our concessions that are covered. In addition to that, every year we are adding, almost 150,000 new gas customers. So these are typical customers that are using LPG bottle, this unsafe bottle in their houses, providing more security for the housewives and the kids in the houses, supplying a new gas connection to 150,000 customers. In addition, of course, of our expansion on the CNG business. I think I've said it all. I'm just sharing with you here some numbers. As I said, we've reached 11.7 million customers on the residential unit. We keep connecting as well the commercial unit, factory, and any new power generation in Egypt now is connected either with natural gas or renewable energy, depending on the scale. Again, on the CNG business, which is the car compressed natural gas for vehicle, we are growing. By the end of 2023, we'll be reaching 400,000 stations, 400,000 cars and vehicles in Egypt. Having said so, I think I've shared it all with you. And Mario, I'm open. If you have any questions or discussion, I'm open for that. And before the Q&A, I would like to maybe give the chance to my colleague, our Vice President for Africa, Mr. Adli Kafafi, to share his point of view as well on how we can share our experience in Africa.
Hello, everyone. I just had a small thing to add. Today in Mozambique, Mozambique is in Egypt. We started our first gas in 1981, and it took us more than 40 years to connect 11 million clients. Okay, if we started our distribution of natural gas in Mozambique 15 years ago, so today it is the right time to start the localization. The same for the CNG. We started our first CNG converted car in 1992. So that was almost 30 years ago. So if we started 10 years ago in Mozambique to develop the CNG, so today it is the right time. The advantage that we have that in this kind of business, you can utilize more than millions of locals to develop the utilization of the natural gas. This is what we've done in Egypt, and this is what we wish to see in Mozambique. TAQA Arabia, it is the biggest private company distributing natural gas in Africa, not just in Egypt, as a private company. And thank you so much. We're not far. We hope to see Mozambique among the most developed countries in Africa. And I would like to thank our chairman, who he insisted to participate personally when he heard that the session is about localization, because he didn't want to say it, but he was the one who led the local contribution of the private sector in the development of the natural gas for the last 40 years in Egypt. Yeah, he don't like to say it because he did not seem very old, but he actually have a huge experience in that. And I will leave you to take the chance to spend some few minutes with him before we leave. Thank you so much.
Thank you, thank you. Mario, I'm open if you have any questions for me or for Mr. Adli.
Yes, thank you, Khaled and Adli, for this very nice contribution. It is an amazing story. It shows that it takes time. You didn't build Egypt in a day. You didn't build Rome in a day. You didn't build Egypt's gas distribution in a day. So it's a very impressive story. Let us open for any questions that there might be. Yolisa, I don't know if we received any questions for Mr. Khaled.
Hello, Mario. Not as of yet. I would like to prompt first, before we go into any live Q&A, for Michael to do his opening statement, to introduce himself as per the running order of the session, just to introduce himself and to do a quick opening statement for 3 minutes regarding the gas to power station. Straight afterwards, then we can announce the poll question that we'd like to pronounce to the audience and then move on to the panel discussion. So I'd like to give the mic straight to Michael. Thank you so much for joining us and to please introduce himself and conduct his opening statement. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much. So Michael Cornetto here, and I sit in Accra, Ghana, and I lead growth for the gas power business for sub-Saharan Africa. So basically sub of the Sahara all the way down to South Africa. And in my role and in what GE tries to do in the region is basically to provide total solutions for the region. Typically in advanced countries, Europe and the West, you can just sell a turbine to an IPP or to a government, and then they do the connection and they run the power plant, and that is it. But we've realized that in sub-Saharan Africa, as a matter of fact, gas power plant is relatively new. Few countries have been advanced in it. Most IPPs, let's say Ghana, Ivory Coast, were in the early 90s, mid 90s. That was when they started getting gas power plants in the country. Most of the power base in the region has been hydro, if you exclude South Africa, which is mainly coal. So gas power plants has been relatively new compared to other sources. So when GE came into the region, what we try to do is we don't just go to countries to just sell them gas turbines. We try to have a wing-to-wing solution. We go in there. Sometimes we partner with developers, with IPPs. We partner with fuel suppliers to be able to provide the entire solution for the country. Namely, we have this LPG to power plant, which is the largest in the world, as a matter of fact, Bridge Power, 400 megawatts in Accra, Tema. And that is a joint development endeavor, GE and other partners to be able to develop it. We have similar items in Nigeria, Ivory Coast, and recently we also won a 300 megawatt in Senegal, which is going to be a gas power plant as well. We're looking at Mozambique and South Africa critically. With the abundance of gas in Mozambique, it's just imperative that we utilize that for local power generation, like my colleagues mentioned. With renewables being a big thing globally, and Africa having abundance of sunlight, wind, we think it is a good thing to adopt in the region. However, you cannot have an entire grid based on renewables. Just because you need the balances of power, you need the grid stability, you need solid base load capabilities, which gas turbines are able to provide. So as you incorporate the renewables, you also need to incorporate in gas turbines just to make sure that your grid is stable. You don't distort the frequencies on the grid because the sun is here today, it is off in 2 hours, it comes back on, same with the wind. So gas turbines kind of integrate perfectly into the renewable theory, where we have renewables coming online, and then you also have interjection of gas turbines coming online. And also Africa needs affordable electricity, and gas price is coming down. The region is endowed with gas, and that is one of the cheapest ways to provide electricity, and also clean electricity. We talk about transition from coal to gas in South Africa. Gas will give you about half the emissions that coal provides. And even with the enhanced combined cycle and then cleaning of the gas as well, you can even reduce it further. So basically, GE is here to provide reliable, affordable, and sustainable electricity for the region. And that is what we entail to do. I am more in the power sector. By virtue of being in the region, you have to be able to also verse yourself in the gas sector because they go hand in hand. You can't just go do power in any place in sub-Saharan Africa. You have to be able to do both gas and then bring the power together. Countries that have it, you use it. Countries that don't have it, you bring the gas into those countries and you make the power plant possible. And then you hand it over to the governments or to the IPPs if they have it. So we'll talk more on that as we go forward. So thanks for this time, and I'm excited to be here.
Thank you, Michael, for your contributions. I would like to ask the panelists some specific questions. So Adli, a first question for you. What would you say are the latest incentives to improve transmission and distribution infrastructure in gas to power generation, imports and exports?
And I will leave the question for I cannot talk while our chairman is here.
It's, you can talk about it, but it's something that I suffered myself. Of course, this is a very important question, Marian. With your strong background and Deloitte partnership, of course, you looked at a lot of things related to the asset management. Having had a strong infrastructure and pipeline would help you whenever needed, as I said, to balance your shortage and as well to monetize your surplus. So, and typically what's happening in Mozambique right now, there is step 2 is clear or step 3 is clear, while step 1 and 2 need enhancement. Step 3, which means there will be an LNG export facility in a couple of years. They are under construction. So this is fine for the surplus gas, and this is fine for the producer to monetize their gas and their asset discovery. And it will be an element of encouragement for other investors to come and invest when they see there is an exit window for the gas. But you need as well to develop that infrastructure, because maybe the next step for Mozambique, and of course right now there is the small pipeline, it's not a big one that goes to South Africa, but having a strong infrastructure will help you to send gas to other neighbors in East Africa. And as well with the help to develop a remote industrial area where the government of Mozambique maybe did not think or see that the industry could be there, especially on mining and agriculture and so on. So absolutely, I totally agree. Having a strong infrastructure in Egypt had helped us in balancing import at a time and export at another time.
Thank you. And what do you see happening? Do you see any of those? What first steps should Mozambique be taking, in your view, linked to what you've just said?
We didn't see it yet happening, okay, but we're looking forward. We're trying to have several discussions on supporting the international investor to come and invest in Mozambique. We will be looking for a tax exemption, for sure, for a long period of time. We would be looking for a plan for the localization, because you cannot today say that from tomorrow I would need to have a 90% local content. You cannot do it while you do not have the necessary expertise and the necessary industry related to that. So you will need to have a plan, and still we did not see it for the time being, but we hope to see it coming. So the most important one again would be the tax exemption. Secondly, to have a plan for the localization. We all agree that the best thing is to start with an international support and gradually move to the local market. That would be the most two important things, and things related to the stability of the laws. So you cannot have a law that change every year. For the international investors, we need to see the laws coming and staying there for 5-6 years at least to change in order to have the stability, and that would be the most important things if you want really to develop the local distribution of the natural gas. And the advantage that we have today is that there is no subsidy in the market, so that would support, because in Egypt we suffered years ago from the subsidy. So we not have a real competition in the local market, but that is available in the market of Mozambique. And we will work step by step with the locals and with the local authority in order to share our experience on how to see Mozambique developing the utilization of the natural gas.
Great, thank you, Adli. Michael, a question for you, please. I think this is very relevant in the Mozambican context. Is there any specific gas to power project that the industry should keep their eye on, or one that has a significant success story worth mentioning towards advancing the electrification in many African regions?
Sure. So I would say gas to power has been talked about over the years in the region. And before maybe I land at a specific one, there is a reason why it has been a bit difficult in the region to really have a successful gas to power. The merits of having the right size offtake, of having the right port, the right infrastructure, and then having the right tariff spitting out of the project. All these things need to sync up to be able to have a very successful gas to power project. Some of the things maybe on top of my head I can iterate is there is a volume of gas that makes it reasonable for an FSRU to dock at a shore. If you look at some of these countries in sub-Saharan Africa, the grid size, the install base over about only 14 of the sub-Saharan African countries has a grid size more than 1 gig. Only 14. And you need about a gig, 500, 600 megawatts, 700. The bigger it is, the cheaper you can get the gas, actually. So typically, you need a big size project to be able to dock an FSRU and be able to have a very meaningful throughput. We believe that there are other items that also need to line up, which we've been looking at over the years. There has to be legislation, there has to be policy that encourages gas to power. Prevailing tariffs in the country is also important. If the country is subsidizing their tariffs, it is difficult to come in with a cost-reflective gas to power project because it's not a realistic competition. You have probably a country where they subsidize them, they're having 4 cents, 5 cents, where the true cost is, say, 7 or 8. So when you come in with a gas to power project, which will land you probably at a 7 or 8, it's a no-go because it's more than what we're seeing. So those have been some of the roadblocks. However, there has been some success stories. Senegal, for instance, has a gas policy that actually allows them to use some of their indigenous gas for power right off the bat. It is allocated to be used internally in country for power. Those are crucial policies that any country that has gas needs to implement right from the start. Other countries, they basically export all the gas and they don't have any for power development or for industrial use or for other use in country. So that also distorts it. So Senegal is one place we should be looking at. There is going to be appreciable and meaningful gas power projects in country. We're looking at South Africa. They don't have gas. They've discovered some. However, South Africa has the ingredients that can actually make a gas to power very successful. They have the grid size. They can do big power blocks because they can absorb it into the grid. They also have good coastal areas, Richards Bay, Kuha. You can actually bring FSRUs and you can have successful FSRUs. The adjacencies to Mozambique, you can think about bringing in pipelines. There are OICs who are thinking about that, Matola, to bring in some gas from Mozambique. Those are possibilities that I think we should also look at. South Africa is going to be promising because of the size, and then they have the know-how in terms of managing fossil fuels. However, coal is different from gas. But then that knowledge transfer can happen and that training can happen. So Senegal, South Africa, Mozambique, the only good thing or the biggest advantage that Mozambique has is the availability of the molecules. Offtake is not as huge. Demand is not as huge. However, you can augment that by exporting into the South African power pool, where you can actually have power go into the neighboring countries. And as you know, Mozambique is already bordered by about 6 countries, most of them landlocked. So you can actually have a concept where you export gas into or power into those neighboring countries. So those are some of the things we should look out for. And I call it gas by wire, where you actually either make the economic analysis, whether you take the pipeline or truck into the country to build a power plant there, or you build a power plant where the gas is, and then you wheel it into the country. But those are economic analysis that can be made. But that's something that also put Mozambique at a very good point to be able to do a gas to power project. So that's what I would say in terms of gas to power projects.
Excellent.
In the region.
Excellent comments, Michael. Very interesting. I think some of these studies you mentioned are things that the country needs to really start thinking strategically about. For example, the study you mentioned of, do you wheel it or do you produce the power in the region? Very, very, very true. Do you see, Michael, do you see any projects on the short-term radar for gas to power in the region?
Michael is on mute.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, sorry about that. So I was saying that I'm going to mention a few, but you alluded to one, and that is Tema LNG facility, which is actually going to be operational this month. And this is a joint consortium by Helios. And the Tema LNG facility, like you mentioned earlier, is the first receiving LNG terminal in sub-Saharan Africa. This is a done deal. This is something other regions are going to emulate. So that is something that is promising, and I'm glad we have it here in Ghana. The other one I'll mention is the Matola Gas Company, which is trying to do an FSRU with Total and Gigajoules Consortium. That is going to be in Matola, Mozambique, and this is still under development. That is also something we should look at, and it's going to be a receiving terminal. And once there is gas in the Matola region, you can actually wheel gas into South Africa, or you can produce power in Mozambique and send it over to South Africa. Either way. But that is another receiving terminal that we should be looking at. And then we have Car Power, which is actually doing a bit of, with their alliance with Camel, doing a bit of FSRU infrastructures in different regions. So in Mozambique, again, up north in Nacala, around the Nacala Bay, they're trying to do deploy a FSRU receiving terminal and also to be able to have LNG in that region. As you know, Mozambique has separated or disentangled grids, 3 grids, the north, the middle, and then the south in Maputo. They don't connect. So you have to generate in these different spots to be able to supply power to the region. So those projects by Car Power will actually put some gas in the north and be able to generate electricity in the northern region of it. And then Car Power also has a project in Dakar where they're trying to build a receiving terminal in Senegal. And then Total looking at an FSRU receiving terminal, LNG receiving in Abidjan. That's also another project that's on the radar. These are not, the only one that is materialized is the Ghana one, but these are others in the pipeline that we can be keeping an eye on. And then there is the West Africa LNG that they're looking at in Conakry, Guinea. And then we have an IFC project in Sierra Leone where they want to do a receiving terminal and probably use some of that gas either to generate electricity into neighboring countries or to track the gas to industrial use. And then there is Total FSRU in Cornetto, where they are looking at Walvis Bay in Namibia, where they are also thinking about having a receiving terminal. And of course, like I mentioned earlier, South Africa is looking at having a receiving terminal for the IRP, the 3 gigawatts they're looking at. And they mentioned Saldanha, Richards Bay, Kuha. There's still analysis on most likely 2 or 3, but that's also in the works. And then Mombasa in Kenya, where they're also thinking about a receiving terminal. So these are a few of the LNG import terminals in sub-Saharan Africa, with the one that is already on the ground being Tema in Accra.
Excellent. Thank you, Michael. Very positive to know that these things are becoming a reality. And as you said, it will only accelerate from here. Very good.